Well, that was our offshore adventure earlier this year. Took a lot of preparation, but it was absolutely worthwhile. And I think everyone who visited our ship during our stay has got to come to the same conclusion that we have to do it again next year. And maybe we will. Well, like I said, we have like a three-part company. We've got Radio Waddenzee, Radio Seagull, and we've got the ship. Radio Waddenzee is a station in Dutch. It's not a Dutch language station in the sense that we only play Dutch language music, but the presentation is Dutch. It's on air on 1602 between 7 in the morning and 7 in the evening. And it's fully presented. It took some while before we got that far. In the beginning we had periods of continuous music, but we did want to have it presented completely. That is something that we finally managed to do. One of the big steps forward this year is that we finally managed to get a news bulletin on the hour. That took a lot of time, and that is mainly because it's so very expensive. Running a radio station, as it is extremely expensive. You pay for a lot of things that you don't get anything for in return. You're talking spectrum fees, you're talking your contributions to the royalties, which is extremely unfair. And this is not a complaint, but it's a fact of life. But you pay as an AM station exactly the same rates as you do as an FM station, which is simply not fair. Every 100 people, 95 listen to FM and only 5 will listen to AM. Still, the rates are the same. However, we knew this when we started, so no moaning there. But it is an awful lot of money that needs to be earned to keep the whole station running. Well, having a news service was one of the things that we thought was extremely important to a station like ours, because if it's music only, even though it's presented, people do tend to want to hear what's going on in the world, at least once every so many times. So what happens is that they switch off just to tune to another station, and usually you don't get them back. So, but as you know, it's money. Having a news service is very expensive, and so it took a while before we managed to raise the money for that. Finally, we did. The company policy, and that is all 3 sections wide, is that we first see if we can do it. If we can't, we don't do it, and if we do it, we can. And that's the order we always had, and it means that we have very little surprises in the sense that we start something that we can't keep up at a long range because lack of money or lack of anything. It's the same with the news service. We could have started earlier and perhaps go broke, and now we just had the money, and well, there we are. Radio Waddenzee is doing very well, considering its medium and considering the time times we are in. It's an AM station. We have an average of 8,000 listeners a day, which is reasonable. There's no FM station that's going to fall over surprise with 8,000 listeners, but having a regional AM station, you're doing reasonably well. When, in times like with the offshore experiment, that just doubles, triples, and maybe even 4 times its usual number, because people are getting interested. It's a lot of publicity, so that served us very well. The website is another sort of indicator of how you're doing, and at this stage, this very month, we reach 80,000 hits a month on the Radio Waddenzee website. These are not unique hits, I know that, and I'll be the first to admit, but nevertheless, 80,000 times a month, someone goes to the trouble to click on the Radio Waddenzee website. And some of them, maybe most of them, just listen. So we're not doing bad at all. It's been a long way, it's hard work, and we have a wonderful crew. And yeah, what more can you say? We've got very loyal listeners. The number of people responding is constant on the one hand and increasing on the other. You see a range of the same names return every now and then, and sometimes there are new names and they become part of the family, whatever you call it. So we are getting forward. It's taking time, and well, we're still there. And that is, it's what we call it in Dutch, een jongensboek. I don't really know the proper translation for that in English, but it sort of means that it's a book about something that is only to happen in stories. And here we are. Years ago we started with absolutely nothing, and now we have an organization that, as one of the very, very, very few commercial radio stations in Holland, owns everything. We don't rent. Thank you. We don't rent from Nozema, we don't rent from broadcast partners, everything is ours. We have 2 transmitter sites, one on a ship, one on land. Everything is ours. Transmitters, masts, infrastructure, processing, everything. And that is one of the reasons why we can do what we do. Had we rented from Nozema, we would have had to pay 3,500 euros a month. And that is not the amount of money we earn. So that way was a way we couldn't go. So it's an effort, and we got there. And, well, basically that is what I can tell about Radio Waddenzee. Radio Seagull, our English service, well, there's some developments there. When we first started, Radio Seagull got the frequency, and we realized that Radio Seagull was never going to make enough money with the format we have to make it work. So Radio Waddenzee was introduced. But still, Radio Seagull is there and doing very well. Radio Seagull is on 1602 from 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. All programs are presented. We have a news service on Radio Seagull as well. So that's also progress. We have been trying, and for a part succeeded, in getting Radio Seagull relayed on other stations. During a few months in 2008, we've been relayed by 105 FM in Tenerife for the expats. That sort of put us on a trail to look for more occasions like that. There are several stations out there only using their airtime during daytime from 7 to 7 or to 7 to 10, whatever, and then switch on automatic pilot just because there has to be something on the frequency. Well, the easy way out is just relay Radio Seagull, and that will give us an extra output and will give them high-quality presented programs. Well, that is the way we worked with 105 FM in Tenerife. Unfortunately, that came to an end, but we're looking for other options similar to that. Radio Seagull is, because of that, you cannot always get a relay on a station that is in our time zone. The problem then is if you got a relay by a station in like Australia or Canada, you've got the time difference. And if you tag your radio station as a rock-orientated album station, and people tune in Canada and they hear Franz Bauer or accordion music, well, that's not really what the tag says. So this is why we decided to separate Radio Seagull technically from Radio Waddenzee. There is now a Radio Seagull feed on the internet 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's only presented nighttime, the 1602 time, because we simply don't have enough staff to man the other hours as well, but that is a matter of time. If now we can find a relay somewhere, wherever on the world, we can just offer them a high-quality Radio Seagull feed. And this is one of the reasons why we separated Waddenzee and Seagull. We have an office in London. We're very proud of that. It's physically a very tiny office, but we have an office. It's got a phone number, it's got a fax number, and it's got a PC in there. So what more can you wish? That is another step forward. And very slowly, we have someone in the UK trying to raise awareness and try to find things like lottery grants. In Holland, we got things like the Postcode Loterij, that you can get a grant from. Well, in the UK, you've got grants like that, especially if you have one-off events, historic, cultural. And one of the thoughts we have is that we might just interest the committee to grant us a few thousand euros or pounds. I wouldn't mind, whichever. To have a project like in the coastal area of the UK, because the 1602 covers the northern part of the Netherlands, officially and on a reasonable quality, it's the northern part of North Holland, Friesland, a part of Groningen, and the Waddeneilanden. But we drove up here today during daytime, and we were listening to the 1602 right in front of this hotel. So that's the far it goes. The coastal area in the UK, we also cover. Beccles, Felixstowe, Great Yarmouth, Lowestoft, even places as Margate. We have listening reports. And not just freaky antennas and things, but just a simple Tesco radio will do. Now, one of the reasons we were considering lottery grants is to raise awareness in the coastal area and maybe just get some revenues from there. I mean, it's an English language station and it's there anyway, so we might as well give it a go. Radio Seagull.
Maybe silly question. Why don't you turn up the power?
Sorry?
Maybe a silly question. Why don't you turn up the power?
Why don't we turn up the power? Well, unfortunately, the technical know-how we have, and I think we even, if we look in the backyard, we might even have a transmitter of 25 kilowatt, but there's the problem of the license. It's just licensed 1 kilowatt, and even though there are countries like Spain who just don't give a toss about what the licensed power is, and they just turn it up to 25, Radio Victoria, I think it's called, in Spain, they're broadcasting far too powerful than their license allows, but they do. Now, here in Holland, it's simple. 1 kilowatt is 1 kilowatt, and that's as much as it'll ever get. The advantage is when we're broadcasting from the ship, which from time to time we do, gives an increase of coverage significantly, really, because when we were out at sea, I'll just slightly go to our offshore period. When we were out at sea, we had listening reports of people in cars in Calais. So it just really makes a difference if you're broadcasting off salt water or just off the land. The obvious question is, why don't you stay there? Oh, that's a good question, and I have a very simple answer. You've got logistical problems beyond belief, let alone the costs. Running diesels, running tenders, is very, very expensive. Insurance is a big problem, and that is obstacles we still have to overcome for a return to the high seas on the Waddenzee next year. But there is absolutely a big difference. If we put the ship's transmitter on, we do get much further. Slowly we get into the ship. The ship, eventually, when we started with Radio Waddenzee, we just had a license. You get to the problem of putting up an aerial, and you have to have planning permission. Well, finding a site was a problem that we had to overcome first. When we found one, we wanted to erect the masts, and you have to have planning permission, bouwvergunning van de gemeente. And well, there was objection after objection, delay after delay, and at some stage we said, well, just suppose that one of these complainers gets what he wants. It's going to be end of story, and a lot of money down the drain. Well, having been where we have been...
I've got a question. Which main audience are you aiming at with Radio Waddenzee? Are these the inhabitants of the Wadden Islands? The doelgroep.
The target group that we aim for is asked here with Radio Waddenzee. Radio Waddenzee aims for the people that live in the area, and Radio Waddenzee aims for the people that are in the area, and that's not the same. There's a number of people that lives there, and there's a much bigger number of people that goes there. Every summer, it's a touristic area, every summer 2.5 million people go to the islands alone. These people have no particular radio station apart from what they take with them. The good thing is with visitors, there's a good and a bad side to that. The good side is that they usually bring only one radio set per car, per family. That is very often a radio set that only has one speaker. So it doesn't really matter if you're stereo or mono. I mean, make your disadvantage your advantage. So that problem we've overcome. And then it's usually the family radio, and the result of the station choice is always a compromise, because the youngsters want to listen to 538, the oldest want to listen to classic FM, and you end up somewhere in the middle, hopefully being Radio Waddenzee. Apart from that, we are aiming for the people that are already living in the area. So we have, apart from the national news on the top of the hour, we have bulletins with local, regional news. Beside that, we have, because we are in an area that is going to be appointed a wetland heritage. I don't really know the English word, but it's sort of a protected reservation. Okay, but you know what I mean. And being there, the name Radio Waddenzee appeals to nature, to awareness of surroundings, biological solutions for problems, duurzaam. Ik weet niet echt het Engelse woord daar. Sustainable. Sustainable materials and solutions for problems. So that is roughly, it's a lot of text just to say a small thing, but we're aiming for the guests, we're aiming for the people who live there, and the emphasis in the programs is on what we call simply green. That answer your question? Okay.
How interested are companies to advertise with your radio station?
Did everybody hear the question? How eager are people to advertise? Well, it's hard work. As I told with the listeners, 95% listens FM and only 5% tunes into AM. That sort of is the same with advertisers. It's just harder work to convince them that they really want to advertise on AM. They just don't know yet. And we do experience that having passed all through these years, it's not getting easier, it's getting less difficult. When we started, it was really, really hard work. And now you've got the brand is sort of settled down. People know it. We have had our free publicity. We have house-to-house paper that publishes our programming every week. It's just that slowly but certainly, there's a Dutch saying that says the continuous drip hollows the stone. And that's the story. If we just building and building and building, and awareness is growing, and it's not getting easy to sell adverts, but it's getting less difficult.
Do you have your own sales team, or do you use the agencies?
No, we have our own sales team. We do not qualify for any group sales team because our coverage is either too diverse. If you broadcast just to one community, that's easier to sell than when you broadcast to a larger area. And on the other hand, if you have not national coverage, that limits it on the other hand. So, no, we have no real agents. We do it all, that as well. We all do it self. I think I got stuck where we were talking about erecting the mast and coming to the conclusion that when some of the complainers to the planning permission were just put right, we would have had nothing. So we decided the only place you can just put a mast without having to have planning permission is on a ship. So we start looking for a ship. Now, because it's all water under the bridge, I can tell you now that the communicator has been offered to me twice for a really, really cheap price. When it was finally sold, there were 3 people very happy. The seller, that he finally got rid of it, the buyer who thought he had a bargain, and I was very glad because I had managed to resist the temptation to buy it myself. Because we would have gone to Harlingen with a coaster, and there's already 20 of them, so that wouldn't have made a difference. Now we bought our own ship, a light vessel. There had never been a light vessel in Harlingen before, so the ship itself draws a lot of attention. It's really a key mark. I mean, everyone who comes into the harbour with the ferries, you see it. It's got a massive lighthouse, it's got a tower, and it's really present. So that is why we decided to do the ship. It was a hell of a job. we have very little to no money, so we have to do everything either by ourselves or ask people very friendly. And that is also one of the things that's getting less difficult all the time. Companies know us. They know that if we buy it, we pay it, because we don't buy it if we can't pay it. And so we gradually move on. And the first year we had the ship, we used it to make it look more or less acceptable, because it was really in a state when we bought it. The second year, we used it to make it ready to broadcast. The mast was erected, the studios were built in, there was put a transmitter on board. And this last year, we've been working on improving things like accommodation, put in a second studio, improving the galley, working on just running hot and cold water. Flushing a toilet is something that you consider very normal, but when you're on that ship and you've been carrying buckets for 2 years, then being able to flush a toilet is a profit in itself. So we are slowly but certainly getting there. There's still a lot to do. There's still a long way to go, but the ship looks very nice, and we eventually got where we wanted, and that was try to anchor it out at sea, do a live broadcast, and as you could see on the footage, that was a massive success for all of us who were there, and for all of you who listened and responded, and well, just confirmed that our decision to try it was a good one. We are working on doing it again next year. So if you haven't had a chance to visit the ship now, there might be a second chance. One of the things that we are going to do is there's a lot of footage from the beginning when we bought the ship, and the refitting, just the first years of breaking down and taking things off it, from the nowadays that we start to paint and freshen up and brighten up and make it all look better. With this, of course, a large part of the footage going concerning the offshore period. That is all going to be compiled into a DVD. That DVD will be a limited edition. Hopefully next year when we go offshore again, that'll be available. And we hope to just brighten up our funds a bit by selling that DVD. The footage you saw in the beginning of my being here is going to be part of it, and there's another part I want to play now, and that's going to be part of it as well. So next year, somewhere next year, that DVD will become available, and hopefully when you purchase one, do bear in mind that giving someone the opportunity to copy it is going to take away a bit of revenue from us. So that's one of the reasons why we make it a limited edition. The other thing is that we try to make some money out of that. There's going to be two versions. The 2-hour version that's going to be for sale. There's going to be a 45-minute version that will be offered to to regional and local television stations. And some of these stations have already shown some interest, so you might even see that on telly. Well, that is sort of all the news I had, and if there's anything else you'd like to know, just ask.
Can you tell us something about the search for the ship?
The search for the ship?
How we went about that and what made you decide?
Well, we tried. Well, the search for the ship is. We decided we wanted a light vessel, so that made it easier, and it was just a matter of looking. Are there any light vessels for sale, and where are they? So what we did was make a long list of what was available, and a large number of them we could just take off the list because they were either too expensive, too hard to get. We've even been to Ireland, where one ship was decommissioned, the Skewer. She looked very nice. We made an offer, but the offer was not enough. At the end of the day, we had two options left. The LV-20, I think it is, 20 or 28, which is in Liverpool. That is a copy of the LV-18, the one in Harwich. It's the 3-deck ship. And the LV-8 in Rotterdam, the one that we eventually bought, which is a 2-decker. There are two types of ships, and we got a 2-decker. So, and getting the ship from Liverpool was so expensive that answered the question before we even asked it. And so the LV8 it was. And we towed it to Harlingen. Oh yes, the Liverpool ship was still for sale. Yeah, but everyone who wants to buy it either has to be in the UK or a millionaire, because it's very expensive to tow it all around the UK. And any more questions?
Licentieperiode, tot 2011 lopen de analoge frequentie. Daarna, hoewel Waddenzee daar weer verder gaan?
Question is what we do with the license. The license runs out at September 1st, 2011. It's likely that the new reallocation procedure will start next year, 2009, in order to make sure that everyone knows by 2011 whether he's got a frequency or not. Yeah, we're not yet sure. Depends on if we can get some financiers to finance an attempt to get FM frequencies, because that is going to make life a lot easier. We might try to keep what we have, and we might try to get more than we have. Depends on what funds come available and what we run into.
Want digitality or analog mixed?
Well, it's in Holland. It's easy. If you want to have, we have your AM frequency. I'm not digitally. I'm not talking DAB, because I think that is just a past station. But if you're talking DRM, it's if you want to, if you have an AM frequency, you can just send a request to the radio authority or to the telecom agency, and ask them to alter your license to allow you to do DRM. But DRM is broadcasting virtually to no one, because there are no receivers. So there's absolutely no point. And it's a chicken egg story. As long as there are no receivers, there's no one eager to broadcast on DRM, apart from the BBC, who couldn't care less what it costs. And so, yeah, no, analog for the time being.
Mixed with FM, AM, with DRM function? And then, is there a mark for you?
Well, if we can get an FM frequency, it depends where and what the coverage is. I mean, if it's just a local frequency somewhere in Limburg, and well, there's not much point. We wouldn't say no, but then probably an AM frequency apart from that would be handy. Well, to run ahead of the DVD that we'll try to show you next year when we go out at sea again, is we got a teaser, well, more or less a teaser in the player. So I'd like to finish my my update with showing you that footage as well. Thanks again, and if you're not a regular listener, I can't imagine you're not, but if you're not a regular listener, do tune in and let us know that you listen. Thank you.